Well, hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar on my CPE. I'm your host Sam, joining you from Houston, Texas, and I hope you're all safe and healthy. Firstly, let's make sure your audio and video are working properly. You can see the screen and hear me loud and clear. Please let us know here in the questions panel or in the chat panel. And also, do let us know where you're joining from, like the city, state, or any part of the world. You're most welcome to my CPE webinar. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today and supporting our social initiative of One Credit, One Meal, under which we donate one meal to an underprivileged family. All right, Isabel, loud and clear in Florida. That's great. And we are also joined by our wonderful presenter for today's webinar, the leadership exchange expert, Drew Stevens, having more than 35 years of professional business experience working with both Wall Street and Main Street. So, hey, Drew, hi, how are you?
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited. How are you, Sam?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to
Awesome.
have you here, right? So before we begin, just let's quickly have a fun with the riddle question that we have been doing on these MyCP webinars. And let's see, do you and the audience, if anybody can get this riddle here. Okay, here it goes in the chat panel. Oh, here it goes. It says, I'm something to make you know. I'm something to make you know. I'm something to which the answer you might never know. I'm something to make you know, I'm something to make you think, and I'm something to which the answer you might never know. What am I? Feel free to put your response here in the chat or the Q&A. And guess what? We love the wrong answers here. Right answer really doesn't matter here. Okay, Isabel says future. Wow, that's a good response. Drew, what do you say? What do you go with? Brain. Okay, that's also really an great response here. But guess what? The right answer here is the riddle. The riddle itself is the right answer for this question. It is something that you have been thinking of. It is something that you got to know now. And the answer you never knew, right? I hope that was
Tricky.
I hope everybody enjoyed that. And thank you for your great participation here. That was really tricky. Yes. Thank you. So let's move ahead. One more important thing, everybody, that is to obtain your credit certificates. It is required for you to remain logged into the session and answer all the polling questions. And let's make this webinar as interactive as possible. Feel free to put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A. And Drew is really active and entertaining. So feel free to drive in your responses here. We would love that. And without any further ado, let's begin, right? I would love to pass on the stage to our presenter. And as I mentioned, we have got with us Drew Stevens, the leadership expert. He's also the CEO of Stevens Performance with over 35 years of professional experience. He provided three instant methods that led to professional transformation, top line growth, and business success. He works with founders and senior leaders of middle market organizations to scale the business and transform into wealthy, profitable organizations. So Drew is also really have some strategic planning and revenue expertise, lending to assisting organizations in achieving over 11 billion during his 25-year tenure. So Dr. Stevens is have some unrivaled knowledge, and his competitive differentiation is getting you personally or your organization the edge that it needs to get financially strong. So without any further ado, Drew, thank you so very much for being here. Honor to have you. Let's rock and roll. The floor is all yours now. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Sam. I'm excited to be here for everybody today. I want to thank my CPE for having me. And I think you guys are going to find that this is going to be an incredible topic, a topic that no one actually likes to talk about. So I want to get right into this and right into the presentation just so that we can get started because I have a lot to cover in the little bit of time that we have. So when I start these particular exercises, I typically like enjoying answering three questions for you because many of you were probably saying, as Sam was talking about before, you know, who is this guy, Drew? What is this topic about? And, you know, there's some things that you think you might know, but you want to know, and what don't you know? And that's what I'm here to help you with. And I'm going to do that by addressing three very basic questions as we begin the webinar today. And that is, why this topic? Why me? Why did my CPE even call Drew Stevens and say, hey, dude, you got to put this topic on? And why are we even having that discussion now? What I want to do is answer those questions. And once I do that, I want to get into the meat of our program today. I want to talk to you about business killers. And what I want to let you know about is that there are 12 of these bad boys. 12 of these bad boys that actually affect the business in a negative way. And it's why business owners struggle. So, what I want to do is, and what I want to promise you today are three things. Number one is that I'm going to give you a amount of information, a tremendous amount of information. So please take notes. Number two, I'm here for you. This is not one of those topics where it's going to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher and all I'm going to do is talk. Wah, 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 wah. I want to be what I say the four I's: engaging, interactive, introspective, and information. So, what I want to do is I want to provide as much information as I have, but I also want it as much as possible to be introspective. And as you begin to think about these things, I then want you to ask me questions. I'm here for you. So make sure you stop me. Make sure you utilize Sam to ask questions that you may have. And number three, I'm going to ask you some questions just to make sure that you're on it, because I want to make sure that I'm hitting you in those areas that you want to know a little bit more about. And I want to make you think about certain things. So Sam and I will provide some polling questions for you as we go through this informational session today. So let's start, as Sam said, rocking and rolling. Let's move this bad boy. So why this topic? Why am I even having this conversation today? Well, as I started this webinar today, and as I got settled for today, I'm watching the stock market, and the stock market is beginning to tumble, and it's beginning to tumble, and there's a whole lot of rumor and speculation. I'm not going to get into it, but most of it, almost 90% of it, is pegged on the fact that there are COVID-19 concerns, that the Delta variant and the Lambda variant are wreaking havoc, and once again, there will be masks. There's going to be a need for vaccinations. I'm not going to get into it. But I am here to tell you that I know 12 individuals who were profoundly affected by the COVID-19 scare. Well over 400,000 businesses closed. The United States and the global economy closed for 3 months. And I will tell you right now that businesses were in trouble way before the COVID-19 pandemic. The problem is that the pandemic just amplified those issues. And they amplified those issues because many business owners conduct the same 12 mistakes on a continual basis. And that's what I'm here to discuss with you about, providing more information on what on earth those 12 items are. What puts me here? What brings me in front of the Zoom camera to even have this conversation with you? Well, a couple of different things. Number one, I've been involved with business restructuring and turnaround for well over 37 years. I've been involved in mergers and acquisitions, 5 of them, in fact, 2 of which of those organizations went public. And I have a profound opportunity to having had worked on Wall Street as well as Main Street. My work with both senior leaders and founders of organizations from small to middle market companies has produced over $11 billion in new revenue in the amount of time I've been working with them. And my work in private equity and capital lending has helped produce more revenue for founders and small businesses. In addition to that, I'm a charter member and charter founder of XPX Exchange, which happens to be the exit planning exchange here in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm the author of 14 books, and as well as an international keynote speaker. And so as I work with businesses and talk about exit planning strategies, and I talk about succession plans, not that this whole thing is based upon that, what I want to do is I want to try to identify as much as possible those issues that organizations are having today. And then finally, why are we even having this topic right now? Well, the market is off 854 points, and that is because of COVID concerns. 2, businesses are failing. Look at the number of businesses that are no longer in existence, not even small and mid-sized businesses, but some of the larger ones. I just read an article yesterday that some of the favorite restaurants, at least here in the United States, and those with international accessibility are closing down. Cheesecake Factory, Carrabba's, Steak and Shake, Red Robin, Boston Market, the list goes on. Pier 1 is no longer in business. J.C. Penney has gone bankrupt. Hertz Rent-A-Car has gone bankrupt. National Rent-A-Car was bought by Enterprise. We have entrepreneurs and literally businesses that are struggling every single day. In addition to that, business owners are stressed out. They're very, very anxious and they don't know where they're going and how they're going to get done. To a certain extent, the business is running them and they're exceedingly tired of the businesses running them. And finally, we have situations today where many people are baby boomers. Many people are owners of businesses and they want to get out of the business, but they can't. And they can't because of a number of those issues that I'm going to bring to market today. So, where do we begin? How do I help you to understand some of these 12 issues that are happening in the market today? How do I help you to make this a successful venture for the next 55, 60 minutes? Well, let's do the best thing that I can do and focus on you. So what I'm going to do for a quick second is I'm going to take a sip of water. Sam's going to help me because we're going to start the interactive portion of our program, and Sam's going to help me with our first polling question.
Sure, on your words, Drew. Thank you so much. And folks, the first polling question of the day is up on your screens right now. So please go ahead, choose an appropriate response, yes or no, basically. How many of you operate your own business? Let us know here. Okay. And 10 more seconds here for everybody to submit their responses. And meanwhile, as you mentioned, let's make it really interactive. Feel free to put your comments, suggestions, questions in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll definitely address them, right? All right, I'll close the polling question here. And I see most of them, yes, they do operate their own business too. Thank you, and it's back to you.
This is great. And the fact that you guys all, 100% that at least answered own your own business, basically this seminar is for you, but for those that are CPAs, for those that are attorneys, for those that are vendors working for small business, this is just as much for you as for everybody else. And that's why this is so darned important. So let's start with business killer number one to get you rocking and rolling and why perhaps your business may be struggling. Business killer number one is a lack of strategy. And so when we look at the differences of what is making a great business versus those that are struggling right now, we can look at businesses such as Radio Shack that are no longer in existence, Blockbuster that are no longer here. They failed because they were working in a very, very tactical way. They failed because they were working on things that did not coincide with the three things that keep strategy in line and formulated the right way. Let me ask a quick question and let me use the chat window for this. What is the difference between strategy and tactics? If you know, what is the difference between the strategy of the organization and the tactics of the organization? Let me just do a quick pause as I wait for you guys to answer. And if you don't know, just say, I don't know, IDK, I don't know. Just use your chat window to do that. And nobody's responding, Sam. I think they're a little scared. So let me give you the definition. See, too many people tend to utilize the word strategy. Well, we're very strategic because, we're working on that project right now to put in hot and cold running water. And we're working on the new ways in which to send boxes out through our logistics company. Well, that's the problem. You're not being strategic. The difference between strategy and tactics is simply this. Strategy is what the business is. Tactics are how it's going to get done. Strategy is the what of the business. Tactics are the how. Strategy is nothing more than a framework that will then take the organization to where it needs to be. Not now, but in the future. Tactics are getting it done now. The three principles that are behind strategy are mission, vision, and values. Let me say that again. The three components of strategy are mission, vision, and values. Values, your core beliefs, what you believe in, customer service, honesty, integrity, ethics, boundarylessness, great working culture, people with innate skills, serving the customer right, the list goes on. Vision, where you want that organization to be in an amount of time. Now, let me also tell you that there's been a problem with strategy because there are too many individuals that have grown up thinking that strategy needs to be a 10-year plan. And I'm going to tell you right now, that does not work. There are many people that also believe that strategy needs to be a 7-year plan. That too does not work. Strategy is a framework that takes you into the future. Strategy is a framework of where the future should be. And I'm going to tell you the strategy should be no more than 3 years in operation, 36 months. I say that because who would have thought in 2019 we would have had a global pandemic in 2020? Who would have thought in 2020 that the market would have dropped precipitously as much as it did? Who would have thought in 2021 that a very large cargo container coming out of China was going to get stuck in the Suez Canal? Who would have thought that we would have had wars? Who would have thought that we have had a global recession? You can't do that. There are too many things that are happening in the world, and too many of where these organizations are looking so far out into the future, they're not recognizing the fact that it's too much. Strategy has got to be not only a 3-year commitment, but it should be looked at every year, if not every 18 months. Are we on the right path? It's that simple. So as I just came to you today to conduct this webinar, I actually came from a client to do a strategic planning meeting. We started a strategic planning process in late December of last year. We put together the plan. It's now 6-7 months into it. And so behind this manila folder are then an understanding of where the goals are in the first and second quarter of this year, and whether or not we're going to be on par with Q3 and 4 as we move into 2022. That's why strategic planning is so important. It keeps your eye on the prize. And most importantly, you have to have metrics of success. So business killer number one, because there will be a quiz on this. Sam has promised me there's not only a quiz, there's a final exam. No, just kidding. But there is an opportunity for you to list all of these and keep them by your side. Put them in a mirror. Put them someplace where you're going to see them on a day-to-day basis so you can recognize what these killers are. Business killer two is the purpose of the business. I had been taken many years ago by a quote that I read in a book by the very famous management guru, Peter Drucker. In the book entitled The Practice of Management, Peter wrote that the purpose of business is the customer. The customer controls logistics. The customer controls products and services. The customer controls the marketing. The customer controls how many people we need to hire. The customer controls how we're going to market our services and how we're going to distribute them. Here is the problem. There are too many businesses that coincide with this trite expression of, I'm in business to make money. Yep, I'm here to make as much money as I can. Well, you know what? You could be here to make as much money as you can. And part of the problem that we have with many businesses today, and even organizations, is simply the fact that they're so focused on returning ROI to shareholders that they're forgetting about their most prized asset, and that is the client. I was overtaken many years ago when I had seen a YouTube video featuring the organization known as SAS or SAS Institute out of Raleigh, North Carolina. The management guru, Jim Goodnight, there, the chief operating officer who runs a $1 billion firm, was asked specifically, look, you've been asked $2, $3, $4, $5 billion for this organization, and this was back in 2008 and 9. Why you're not selling the business? Why are you not public? And he said, you know what? You got to cook the books in order to make the money that people are expecting for your shareholders. And the other thing is, there is no possible way for me to tell my shareholders to the penny what I'm going to make in Q3. My biggest assets are the people that leave my offices every single day. So why not take care of them? If I take care of them, they take care of my customer. If they take care of my customer, the customer comes back and buys more from me. See the way that it works? And he makes one huge circle with his hands. And so what a great example of the purpose of the business. So what I'm suggesting here is for you to take a look at your customer service, for you to take a look at the employees that are working in your business and making sure that they're service savvy, to make sure that you understand the customer journey and whether or not everybody is meeting the expectations of the customer. See, when you get greedy, when you're so worried about profit motives, when you're so worried about what's happening with shareholders and investors, and the list goes on and on and on, you're not formulating the business in the right way, and the business is going to fall apart. Blockbuster forgot to ask what the customer wanted. Radio Shack was selling everything but what they were known for back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Sears completely forgot who their customers are. And the list goes on and on. The purpose of business is the customer. So I ask you right now, is the purpose of the business your customer? You don't have to tell me on chat, but I really want you to think about that. I really want you to think about what seems to be making the most sense for you in terms of these killers. And we're only on number 2. We're about to get to number 3. But I want you to be thinking about what you need to do in order to change today. In fact, let's use the chat box very, very quickly. And that is simply this. What is making a big impact on you right now as I move to business killer number 3? That is in terms of, if you're not making any music, there's no noise. If you're not creating a community, you're not doing anything to build your brand. What we're talking about here, and where most of those 400,000 businesses made a mistake here on business killer number 3, is simply the fact that they don't conduct marketing. I cannot tell you how often I speak to business owners on a day-to-day basis. And I ask them significantly every day, so what's your marketing like? And they say to me, what? Do what? Your marketing. If you have a business, and the business I just came from where I did the strategic plan is roughly a $3 to $4 million a year business. And so I basically said to them when they first started that you need to be spending X percentage on marketing. So if you're a $1 million business, it's about 10%. If you're a $5 million business and higher, it's about 15%, unless you have a recognized brand. So for a $1 trillion organization like Apple or Microsoft, or in the case of Apple, excuse me, Apple spends or invests no more than 7% of their total revenue in marketing. They don't have to, because their reputation is doing very, very well for them. But for firms that have an isolated community, for firms that are really looking to build their brand up, you're going to need to inch up to that 3% or maybe higher 8% in order to build the brand recognition that you want. More importantly, you need to think in terms of 2 things. Number 1, you need to think in terms of competitive differentiation. In other words, what do you do that your competitor is not doing? What do you have that your competitive organizations do not have? And too many organizations I know tend to retrofit themselves based upon what the competition is doing. They're not peeling away from everybody else. They're not presenting their own brand. They're not presenting their own value. They're not presenting their own difference. And you have to think in terms of that second area. What is the difference of, let's say, somebody like a Billie Eilish, bringing it into current days forms, Elton John, Lady Gaga? Outside of the fact that all 3 are entertainers, outside of the fact that all 3 have unbelievable voices, and I can even include somebody like Cher into this as an example. Why am I bringing all of these people into it? Because they all do something different on stage. Cher changes costumes every other song, and she's in and out of a costume with the long hair, short hair, blonde hair, black hair, as often as she can. Elton John made his mark back in the 70s and 80s with all types of different costumes. And Lady Gaga, one never knows what she's going to wear, whether it was meet at the Oscars or some absolutely gorgeous dress. And then Billie Eilish tends to do the same thing with her hairstyles, with the green and the black and the dressing and everything else. You've got to be able to stand out in the crowd. You've got to be able to make enough noise so that people have an understanding of who you are, what you do, and how you're going to get there. It's that important for you to truly understand. Business killer number 4. Moving pretty good, right? Any questions so far that I can answer for you? Please use the chat panel so that I can make sure that you're doing this. I am amazed by Business Killer 4, and I am about to ask my CPE about just doing one webinar just on numbers alone, because here's an incredible statistic for you. Over the weekend, I was involved in a Facebook group chat, and I was back and forth, and somebody posted on there very significantly to this business killer. And I said to him, it's the most amazing thing in the world how people do not understand this particular aspect. And so what am I pointing to? Quick anecdote for you. Many years ago, both in high school and college, I ran track. I was a hurdler and I was a sprinter. One of the things that I learned very early on was to tape yourself, record yourself, and look at how your leg looked as a lead leg and a trailing leg, as they say in track. To look at my start and what my start looked like with my back foot and my lead foot. To look at my arm placement, to watch my breathing. As I got older, the same thing held true as I got involved in speaking, as a good example, as I got involved in selling, as an example, because I was watching myself interacting with other individuals. The terminology, the video doesn't lie, is very true. What you see on video is going to be truthful. Now, as part of this story, I found my love for track back in high school. But while I was loving athletics, one of the things that I did not like in high school were numbers. I didn't do well in algebra. I did not do well in trigonometry. I did reasonably well in geometry, and that's probably because of the theorems that they had and the way that I think through some of those theorems. But calculus, statistics, often struggled with until that application came into existence when I started to work with companies. And I started to learn balance sheets and profit and loss statements, EBITDA, and expense ratio, cost of goods, and break-even analysis. Where am I going with all of this? Here is where I'm going. And I have a question I want you to use the chat window for. How many of you, when you get to work every single day, those of you that have answered that you own your own business, before you take your key and you physically put it into the tumbler, the lock, what number do you need? What number do you need? Here is why I'm asking the question. I am helping a retail jewelry operation. Craig came to me, 65 years of age. Since he's had the store for 46 years, he's never reached over $1 million. Craig came to me and said, I'm tired. I don't know what to do, Drew. I'm frustrated. I'm tired. He looked like Eeyore. And one of the first questions I said to Craig was, look, you've had this store for 46 years. What was your best year? 1995. Craig, it's 2021. You're kidding me. Your best year was roughly 30 years ago? Yep. So Craig, what number do you need when you put that key in the door every single day? And this is exactly what he said. Hell if I know. Craig does not look at his profit and loss statements. Craig does not look at his balance sheets. Craig does not know what number he needs to meet expenses on a day-to-day basis. Shame, 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 shame. It's why those $400,000 businesses went out of business during COVID, because most of them, and when I say most, over 88% of the businesses that closed during COVID had less than 2 weeks of cash in the bank. That's what they had before COVID even came about. If you don't have a year to a year and a half worth of expenses and savings, you shouldn't be in business. How are you supposed to pay for inventory? How are you supposed to pay for your supply chain? How are you supposed to pay for your employees? And more importantly, how do you explain the seasonality of the business? Because every business goes through seasons. Don't tell me that they don't. Sam and I, before we got on this seminar today, we're talking about seasonality and nothing more than the webinar business, folks. People are at the beach, people are on the lake and in rivers. And you know what? We're about to hit August, And I will tell you, because of my numbers of years in international, although COVID's changed that a little bit, but most of Europe, Asia, and Middle East shuts down. In the Middle East and Asia, it's called Golden Week. And Japan and China and most of the far Asian foreign countries, they close down for 3 weeks. Europe, in Spain, in Italy, in Germany, and so on, the exact same thing. People take 3 to 4 weeks of vacation. Now, you may all say to me, hey, we've been on vacation for quarantine for quite some time. Yeah, but guess what? People have still been Zooming and everything else. So if they can go to the Monte Carlos, if they can go to the Caribbeans, if they can go to, the Mediterranean, guess what? They're not going to be on Zoom. And so it's imperative to understand the seasonality of the business. If you don't, you're doomed. So if you don't like numbers, hire a bookkeeper. If you don't like numbers, hire a CPA. If you don't like numbers, then get a team of experts that you can surround yourself with, but don't negate the numbers. Numbers tell a story. Numbers will tell you how healthy your business is, and numbers will tell you what kind of diseases your organization has. The more you know the numbers, the better suited you're going to be running that business extensively. Business killer number 6. People, processes, and products. As I deal with businesses all day long, I always say that there are 3 reasons why businesses falter. It's an obstacle for the business because it really coincides with what I was talking about before. And that is the fact that most businesses will fail simply because of the fact that they don't have the right people working for them. This coincides with Jim Collins' good to great. You have to have the right people on the bus. In other words, do the people that are working for you have the innate skills? Can they do the job if their life depended on it? I cannot tell you how many times I work with businesses that they have no idea what's happening with the individuals that are working there. There are so many businesses that hire for behavior, they hire for attitude, they hire for what's on a piece of paper. They don't ask the experiential questions to ensure the fact that that person truly understands what that business is supposed to be doing. So you have to have the right people on the bus. Number 2, you have got to have the right processes. It's amazing how many times that organizations will input a process and somehow, some way, ridiculously, they have a wrong process in place. Don't believe me? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the cell phones, for instance. And I don't have to ask many of you about these cell phones, whether it is one vendor or another, because they all do the exact same thing. You get online, you have a problem, you can't make a call. Hello, hi, welcome to ABC. Para continuar en español, marque uno. I see you're calling from 200-555-1212. Are you kidding me? I pay over $300 a month, and you mean to tell me you can't hire enough people to get on the phone, get off their laziness, and answer the call? Hello, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. That's a bad process. I had 2 particular vendors that I had worked with for many years that they said, one of them was the managing director of a cardiology unit at a hospital. And every time I called to make an appointment over there, it sounded as if I was calling the Marriott 800 hotline to make a hotel reservation in a nice destination. You would hear everybody in the background. No, that's not the way to do it. I'm talking to you about my health issues. I want somebody who's an individual that hears me and not over a headset. So believe it or not, I said that process needs to change. He goes, Drew, it doesn't need to change. We're good. Everything's fine. I said, no, Doug, it really needs to change. He said, fine, how much is it? And I told him the price. And he said, nah, too much money. But Drew, we really do want to emulate what the Cleveland Clinic does. Then you're going to have to pay for it. Long story short, his father had a heart attack. He actually had to call in to that same 800 number to make an appointment for his father. He was on hold for 35 minutes, finally got an appointment with a cardiologist. And it took another 3 weeks to get his dad to see the cardiologist. After he hung up with the appointment from the cardiologist, he called me and said, "How quickly can you get here?" Yep, that's a problem. You have to mystery shop your process. You have to mystery shop and journey it out. You have to understand what customers see or what you want them to see. Don't put in these rote systems and think that they're just going to work efficiently because you say so or because some vendor suggested that it's going to work great. Walk the process and understand it. It's imperative. And last but not least are then products and services. Are the products and services that you have matching up with what you want to do? And unfortunately, there are so many people that don't look at consumer behavior. They don't trust the process of asking the customers what's fitting, what's not fitting, or more importantly, what do you want? The best thing that you can do is cozy up with your customers because they'll tell you what they're looking for. That's how you understand trends. That's how you understand what to deliver to them. And most importantly, what customers are looking for today is innovation. Customers are just like you. They're wanting to be competitive. They're wanting to be unique. They're wanting to be different. And the only way they're going to do that is with the products and services that you have to offer. So the best ways to do that is to ask them what they want and then build it for them to a certain extent. Don't build and think they're going to come using the field of dreams. Ask them and then build it depending upon what the consensus says. Now, I know I made a boo-boo a few moments ago. I said business killer number 6, and that was only 5. So here's business killer 6 as we really start to move into that second phase of the program. And I have a quick question for you as I go through. So what I want to do is I'm going to jump very quickly to a quick polling question. Sam's going to help me out, and I'm going to jump to that screen.
All right, thank you, Drew. Ladies and gentlemen, the second polling question of the day is on your screens now. Do you know what your business is worth? Option A, no. How do you determine a business value? B, no, I'm uncertain. C, yes, had it done in last 3 to 5 years. D, not applicable. Please select an appropriate option and hit the submit button. You have 30 more seconds to submit your responses. Thank you. Also, as we are moving ahead with the presentation, please feel free to type in your questions in Q&A panel, and Drew would be more than happy to take them.
Absolutely.
Lovely. All right, I can see the responses are in there, so I'm going to end the poll in next 5 seconds.
Oops.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for your responses. I'm going to end the poll now, and Drew, most of the people are saying option B. No, I'm not uncertain.
Not certain. Excellent. Thank you very much, Sam. Appreciate your help with this. So many people are uncertain what the business is worth. And there's a couple of issues related to this, and it is part of the second half of this, and it's the whole good portion of the business killers. In addition to what I call the qualitative side, here comes now the quantitative side. At some particular point, you're going to have several things occur within your business that will help you and both personally and professionally. And it is necessary to understand what your business is worth in order to do that. See, at some particular point, you may visit with a banker, or you may visit with a private investor and say, I would like to have more money to scale my business. Well, you can't just walk into a bank and say, hi, Sam, if he doesn't mind. How are you today? He's probably on mute, and Sam's going to come back and say, I'm fine, Drew. How are you? Fine. Sam, listen, my business, I'm a retail boutique. I sell women's clothing, and we do some floral work and things of that nature. We're about $1 million, $1.5 million. And, I really want to expand, Sam. So can I have $5 million for expansion? You just can't do that. The only way in which you're going to be able to do that is Sam's going to want to know what your business is worth. Number two, at some particular point, you may opt to sell your business. I have a woman right now. Her name is Cynthia. She owns a tanning salon. She's got 7 beds. She is not doing as well financially as she wanted. She's now working a part-time job, and she would just like the opportunity to just sell the business. So I said, how much is the business worth? And she said, hell if I know. Funny, she must hang out with Craig, the jeweler I talked about before, because it was the same thing. And I said, Cynthia, how do you know what you want for the business if you don't know what it's worth? She said, I don't know. Number 3, and it's things that we're going to get into just a little bit here, folks, but it's important for you to understand. You have to value the business, because at some particular point, you may get ill. And I hate to say it, at another point, you may perish. When we born, we start to die. It's that simple. I'm not wishing it upon anybody. I don't wish an illness or anything else, but I do know people that never made it out of getting ill from COVID. My dearest friend in the world of 40 years and his brother-in-law both had COVID, and I prayed every single day, and thankfully they're healthy. But the fact is that you need to start the processes now. And I have several processes that I can give you that are free. So if you're interested, I will give you some of my contact information at the very end. And I'll also I have a piece of paper that's a white paper on what business killers are, so that you can delve deeper into these topics. So I want to make sure I let you know that. But I do have a business valuation program, and it's going to be very helpful for you, because what you need to understand is what will happen should you need money to run the business at some particular point. See, there's 2 ways in which people run businesses today. Method number 1 is where they're running the organization. The organization's there, it's working, it's running, things are doing what they need to do, and that's great. But the other issue that I tend to get is that the other half of the equation is when the company is running the person. And when the company runs the person gets tired. I can't tell you how many times I have had individuals come to me and they will do this. I'm just so tired. I can't think, I can't eat. I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about the business. Drew, what do I do? What do I do? See, what you need to have is a plan. What you need to have is a methodology that stops the business from running you. You have to have systems in place so that there is efficiency. You have to have an array of delegation. You have to have organization, and you have to have the right people helping you to run the company in the best way possible. See, if you're too busy running the company, then what winds up happening is you may not be paying the right amount of taxes. If you're too busy running the company, you may not be getting the right amount of revenue from the clients that have a bill rate. If you're too busy running the company, then the quality of the services or the products that you're producing may be offset by angry customers. The only way to create the right efficiency is by doing the things that are necessary to move the company to the next level. And the only way you're going to move the company to the next level is by doing the right things and not have the company run you, but you run the company itself. That's what's so important. Now, part of that equation is where you say, oh, I'm so busy. Yeah, don't worry about it. Things are going great. Things are working great. And you know what, Drew, the business is running so well that that's not going to happen to me. That in and of itself, you know what? I don't have to worry about that. Okay. See the guy on the stretcher? We could say that all day long, but we're going to get injured. We can say that all day long, but we're going to die. Here's the thing. I know first responders that have been on the job. Shoot, look at the news and some of the things that have happened recently in the news where first responders are getting shot by individuals that from responses that they're going to, and they're no longer working. Look at contractors that have fallen off ladders. Look at contractors that have been harmed with electricity or plumbing or steelworking. Look at individuals on the factory floor that some way, somehow have gotten harmed. And lastly, look at individuals that I know, like Adam, who owns his own facility. And back in October of last year, called me and said, Drew, I'm not going to be coming to work for a while. And I said, why is that? And he said, because I have COVID. And I probably won't be there for at least 6 to 8 weeks. And it took him another 12. When we were all in our teens and 20s, not running a business, we all felt invisible. We were all Spartacus. We were all ready to rock and roll. You know what? At 59, I still, to a certain extent, feel like Spartacus, but I know that stuff's going to happen. It's unfortunate. Unfortunately, I'm going to fall going out of the driveway. Unfortunately, at some particular point, I'm going to bump my head. Unfortunately, I'm going to be cooking a gourmet dinner and I'm going to slice my finger on a knife. Unfortunately, we're going to get hurt. But if you're not putting systems in place that will help with that, then you're in trouble. In other words, what you need to be able to do is you need to think about disability insurance. You need to think about workman's compensation and what disability doesn't take over, what disability insurance does where work compensation does not. You need to think about how employees are going to get paid should you be out of work. And here's something else. You should be thinking, if it's a small enough business or a medium-sized business, what happens to those key people that are working for you should something happen to them? See, there are products and services that you are able to acquire that will short circuit a lot of the disability claims, that will short circuit what happens. And I hate to say this to you, but should you wind up having a business and you perish, it's up to your family then to wind up with the estate. And at that particular point, taxes are going to come into play. At that particular point, whether it's intestate or you do have an estate plan set up, there could be many, many questions and much infighting when you're not around. It's important for you to start planning. You know, I don't want to sound trite here, but if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. And the only way to circumvent something happening from you is to do the right thing and start your planning today. So before we end our time, and I have just a couple of minutes left here, I have a couple of polling questions. This one, a couple of things to talk to you about, and one last polling question. So I'm going to step away for a quick drink, and I'm going to let Sam drive for me for a quick second. He is my new Uber driver as we do this, or what I'll call my Uber webinar guy.
All right, that's something new that I've seen here. That's perfect. Okay, I'll drive it from here. Thank you, Drew. Okay, so folks, the polling question is already up on your screens right now. Please go ahead, choose an appropriate response and hit the submit button. And the poll would be up for 10 more seconds here for everybody to submit their responses. And meanwhile, as we are heading into our last 10 minutes or so you can please feel free to put your questions or any comments that you have here in the chat or in the Q&A. Okay, most of them, they say, I will give it to children. All right, I would do that too. All right, thank you, Drew, and it's back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. So if you're going to give it to the children, it's a great way to end a segment. If you're going to give it to the children, there's a couple of things I want you to be thinking about here, because many individuals are thinking, and I said the same thing for those of you that answered that question, and that is, well, you know what? There's plenty of time. I don't have to worry about it. The kids are going to take it over. Well, I thought the same thing. I thought my kids were going to take over my business. Now, my business has morphed over the years, but I got to tell you something. When I was in the stages, in those euphoric stages of my kids are going to take it over, they told me, yeah, Dad, no, we don't want it. We want to do our own thing. So Thankfully, that was done back in the when I was in my 30s and 40s, and now that I'm 59 and getting closer and closer to be thinking about these things, I can put now plans in place for something else. But many of us think that there's going to be plenty of time, just like we were saying earlier, that will never happen to me. But the fact is that we need to plan. We need to do things in the right way. So if you do think that you're going to be setting your children up for success, then what you should be thinking about right now are succession plans. What you should be thinking about is putting documentation in place in order to figure out who will succeed the business. See, I'm working with a business right now where it's nothing more than just words that are spoken over a cup of coffee. Yeah, David's going to take over. Okay, but what about your other two children, Adam and Amy? Oh, they don't want to have any part of it. Adam runs his own business. My daughter's out in Colorado. She really doesn't care about that business. And my answer to that is, are you sure about that? See, when death occurs and estate plans have to come into play, I find it absolutely amazing how grossly negligent people are with family and with businesses. People then start to get very avaricious. They start thinking, this is mine, that's mine. And here we are with this business, and we're thinking, oh, there's plenty of time. I can plan for it. I could do this, I could do that. Folks, there's not enough time. You need to start up front. And that is because succession planning takes time. Putting the right team together takes time. Valuing the business takes time. And most importantly, what happens if the kids initially said that they're interested and then decide that they're going to back away? Doesn't matter what it is. We need to put together the right documentation to ensure the fact that there is a plan for succession at any and all times. See, many of us think that not only is there enough time, but if you're not giving it to the children, then the other thought theology is, well, the business is going to be my retirement. So why am I even bothering? Why, Drew, why are we having this conversation? You're saying to me that, you know what, my business is my retirement. So I'm going to be working until I'm 70, 80, 90. Oh, really, my man? Here's the way that retirement should work. And that's why there are so many people out there giving such very, very, very poor advice. And that's why I work in this exit strategy field. And that's why I work on wealth creation. And that is why I help individuals with their retirement, because there's such bad advice. My why story is because I got crappy advice. And because I got bad advice, I learned from it. And what I want to do is I want to give anybody that ever comes to me with issues such as this the right advice so that they could retire early. I have a gentleman who works with the Teamsters, was told all of these different things about his 401k, took a look at his portfolio, folks, and he was making 1% on his money. I had to look at his asset allocation. We made a couple of decisions, and he's up at 18% in the last 3 months. Don't you think he's happy? Obviously so. Here's what I said to him, and here's what I will say to you related to your business being in retirement. We know that when it comes to retirement planning, you have 4 different things you need to worry about. Number one, we know that there's guaranteed income. You're going to have income perhaps from Medicare or Medicaid. You may have some income from your pension plan. You may have income from your IRA. That's all guaranteed. Maybe you put some of that money into an annuity, or maybe you have a stock and bond portfolio. Rock on. Hopefully that's enough to be put away as far as what your income might be. There's also non-guaranteed income that you may have, things that the government may set up, very similar to the 401k, the COVID plans that they had when people were out of work, unemployment benefits being extended. All of those are what's called involved income, non-guaranteed. But on the other side, we also know that we have guaranteed expenses, and you got it, non-guaranteed expenses. Our guaranteed expenses are simply the fact that we're going to have to pay utilities. We're going to have to pay for food. We're going to have to pay for housing unless the house is paid off. Maybe you have a timeshare, maybe you have a mortgage, maybe you have rent. Those are going to be guaranteed expenses. And then we have non-guaranteed expenses. We have the hospital bills, we have the clinics, we have the pharmacy, we have the other health related issues that never come into play. We may have travel plans for a wedding or a funeral we have to go to. And the only way that you're going to plan for your retirement is to do that. You're going to need to plan for your retirement, and using your business as a means of retirement is not the smart way, not a smart method of moving forward with respect to proper retirement planning. Question for you. And I think we saw this before, but some of you have family that you're going to bequeath to. But related to this polling question, I'll ask it very quickly here in the interest of time. Do you have a named beneficiary? I'll just twist this polling question for a quick second, but it could be exactly these words. Do you have a named family member in line to take over your business? Yes or no? You go ahead and use the polling that Sam set up for you. We've got about 15 seconds left. And I've got about 4 minutes. I've got another couple of slides. Here's what I'd like you to do as Sam is conducting the polling question for you here. And that is, please use your chat window before we end. I've got roughly 3 or 4 slides in the amount of time remaining. But I'd like to see what questions you have that I've not answered for you as we complete the session here today. Sam, you're awesome. Thank you so much for your help with this.
Great. Thank you so much, Drew. And the polling question is closed. And let's move ahead. Most of them said yes, they do have somebody. So over to you.
Excellent. So since you have somebody named, the one thing that you have to be thinking of with a business is that you can't beat Uncle Sam. What you need to understand is that when you have a business, there are different ratios that you need to have in mind. The tax rates are changing year by year. As the new president is in, we're seeing that there's new tax laws, there's new initiatives because of an infrastructure plan. We're seeing new initiatives because of things that are related to the IRS to help bolster the IRS. We're seeing student loans being potentially forbear on. We're seeing education changes. So in addition to that, taxes are always going to change, as well as how especially the way that founders and entrepreneurs and middle businesses and even larger organizations are filing taxes. Between having trusts, between having limited liability companies and direct participation programs and all of that, there are differences, especially with limited partnerships, where tax laws come into existence. This is where you're going to need CPAs. This is where you're going to need a good team to help you out to understand ways in which you don't have to pay so much in the taxes so that you don't have enough put away for retirement. So you don't have enough put away for savings. And most of all, you don't have enough to pay for the federal government. You should always have enough to pay for the federal government. And as we finish up Business Killer 12 here, and I didn't want you to pay attention to the numbers as much as I wanted you to pay attention to the topics, and that is in terms of wealth management. There is no such thing as get rich. Anything that you see on Get Rich is nothing more than a scam. What I'm talking about when I'm working with individuals is really stay wealthy. Very similar to that commercial, stay wealthy, my friends, stay wealthy. That's what I'm looking to help you all with. A good management plan is to set yourself up with a good team of financial advisors, to set you up with individuals that understand stock and bond portfolios, mutual funds, cryptocurrencies, and others, so that your assets are leveraged in such a way that you're making enough money, even in down markets like we're seeing today, where it's 800 points down, so that you can maximize the wealth that you have. Put enough money away in savings so that you can pay for all of those expenses that you're going to have at some particular point in time. But more importantly, where you then don't have to struggle past your retirement. You don't have to struggle in terms of selling the business, but you can do the right things right now in order to have a brighter future. So, what are some of the things that you should be doing right now? Couple of things. Number one, you should change. I'm a big advocate of John Cotter, a leadership expert out of Harvard University, who wrote a book on change and said that one of the great eight rules of creating change is to make it urgent. One of those things in this 12 is something that you're undertaking today. My suggestion to you is to simply take a look at what needs to change and change it. Number two, value your business. And if you don't know what that value is, email me and give me a second and I will send you my information. But email me and I will get you a free valuation template. Number two, you need to look at your strategy and think of what the differences are between your tactics and the strategy. It is the best way to run the business and create a vision for the next 3 to 4 years of the business. But you also need to start a good exit strategy. Do not think that you should not exit the business or you're just going to give it to whoever you're going to give it to and everything's going to be peachy keen and fine. Think about what that exit strategy is going to look like. Who is it going to go to? And what is the amount of time that you're going to need? And last but not least, learn to love the numbers. Learn to have an understanding of what those numbers are so that you can have a better future and you don't have to struggle in terms of what do I need to keep the business afloat every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot thank my CPE enough for having me here today. It has been my pleasure to have been speaking with you about a topic so near and dear to my heart. If you have any information or if you want some additional information on business killers, the business valuation, additional products and services, please feel free to email me at drew@drew-stevens.net or take a look at my website. And you can find me at www.drew-stevens.net. I want to thank my CPE, and most of all, I want to definitely thank my good friend Sam for helping me facilitate this session and keeping things flowing throughout. God bless and have a great remainder of the day.
All right. Thank you so much, Drew. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank our presenter for today's webinar, the leadership change expert, Drew Stevens, for giving us yet another informative and one of the most exciting sessions here. And he really is an asset to create wealth with extensive private equity and capital lending experience. And he has written over 14 books and 3,500 articles. You spoke about John Carter, right? You could be like John Carter for us here. So you have a link here in the chat panel, folks. Feel free to register for the upcoming webinars. Use him as a great resource. You can reach out to his company and the email that is mentioned above. And thank you so much once again, Drew. And one more important thing, that is you'll receive an evaluation form in the next 24 hours. And feel free to let us know your feedbacks here in the chat panel or in the Q&A panel. Okay, Isabel says great info. So yes, you really did a great job here. So thank you so much, everyone. If you need the recording, please email us on support@my-cp.com. Well, that being said, thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience. Keep coming back. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone. Thank you so much, Drew. See you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.